Coaching in Session,
your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
Shane, Jacob, we have an easy day today. We're going to be talking about your work. You know, of course, we can kind of give you the typical, you're a life coach or you're a, mentor or a guide. But the work that you do is so much more than that, because your journey is not one of only good moments and of successes, but moments where you have learned that, this might not be great, but I can still make the best out of it. So if you could, can you tell the audience who you are, what you do, of course, and how you help?
Yeah, you betcha. I bet you. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate your show. And you're exactly right. I was asked one time to accept the idea that life was going to be half and half. It was going to be full of as much opposition as it was good. And I didn't like that idea. And I don't think most of us do, because I think that we're so much conditioned to feel good and to do things that feel good. I mean, naturally, right? I mean, our brains are drawn to seek pleasure and avoid pain and, and conserve energy. And so that's the way that kind of our default goes. And so I'm going to back all the way up. It's been quite a while since I was a teenager and a young man, but one of those, in that time frame for me, I had noise in my head, and the noise in my head said, hey, you're not quite the same. You're not as good. You're a little deficient here. You're not measuring up. They're better than you. You're inferior. And so I don't know where that came from. We all go through that to some degree, and as we develop and come to develop beliefs about ourselves. But to me, it seemed like it was pretty disturbing, and I didn't have any like trauma to pin it on, or, I don't really have any. I thought I had a pretty good family life. It doesn't really matter where it came from, but that was what was happening. I really tried to fit in, I didn't feel like I could make friends easy, and was very uncomfortable around groups of people and super shy and, withheld and inside. So I really tried to fit in, and I did pretty good at sports, and I was a decent student, but nonetheless, this noise is still going inside of my head. And like I said, it didn't feel good. It was very uncomfortable, and I didn't know what to do with that. I mean, how would I know? But I was about 16 when I found the solution, and I found the answer, and that was alcohol. Of course, I thought that I found the solution. To me at the time, hey, big game changer. I felt better, and it was easier to relate with people, and so on and so forth. And as a result of that thought process, eventually, and it didn't take a long time, but over a period of time, I progressed into, I became a complete alcoholic. And I mean, for a long time. And I mean, you want to talk about some times, I spent a substantial amount of time locked up behind bars. And even worse than that was the pain and suffering and destruction of the trail that I left behind me for so many people. And so the cycle was, as you can imagine, this is a familiar cycle. I feel bad. I drink alcohol. I feel better. The things that I do when I'm drinking alcohol, when I sober up, they make me feel worse than I did to start with. So I drink alcohol. I feel better. And, it just goes. This cycle felt like it just had a hold of me. I didn't know how to escape this cycle. And so that was the cycle that I was in. So, when you began with, I was able to break free. I like to say, with the help of horses and God, I broke this cycle. I was given help to break this cycle. But with your opening statement, when you said, things, you kind of alluded to things don't always go, they're not always roses. And I didn't like the idea that half of my life was going to be, I couldn't accept that when I first heard that idea. But one thing that I've learned is that I've more and more accepted that. And I kind of like that. Because, without the bad, we really can't accept, we can't really appreciate, I believe that there really needs to be opposition in all things. But there's a further idea that is how do we deal with negative emotion? If we can accept the idea that being a human being is going to be partly negative emotion that we're going to deal with, how can we learn to embrace that? This is a big idea. Like, how can I really accept it when it doesn't feel good. Why would I do that? How does that all work? And that's I wish that as a young man, I didn't know it didn't feel good. So I just figured out how to make it feel better. And I thought that was the solution, honestly. And obviously you can think of 1,000 examples right now, of all the different things that we do to feel better, when in the end, we don't end up feeling better.
Very true. I think of, you said it's been a while since you've been a teen, and I mean, it's been a couple, like 20, or it's been like 2 decades, almost 3 decades going on for me. So if I say it that way, it looks like, it's been a bit. But you talked about a noise in your head, and I cannot imagine what teens are dealing with today with the amount of noise in their head and all of the distractions and all the technology. I mean, when I was growing up, social media wasn't really a thing. MySpace was the first thing, and that was when I was in high school. And then Facebook came when I was in college. And now, it has gotten overboard with all of the TikToks and shorts and, Instagrams. And this is like an overwhelm for me at this point. So I have an assistant that does all my social media. I can't handle it. But I couldn't imagine the teens today with how much noise they have in their, in their mind. And I know you do work with teens and helping them on this path or this area of their life. What's your take on where teens are today in this world that we're living in?
I think that you and I and teens have the most evolved and developed brains that have ever been, that have happened on this planet. And I think it's so far, and I think it's a good thing because there's so much information. And, just like you described, we have so many more choices, so much more information available, so much more stuff coming at us. And if we're, it's coming at us, and it's easy to get lost in that, and if we're not purposeful and intentional what to do with it, because it's very hard to navigate. It's hard to navigate. It's hard to know what to do with it all, And one of the things I hear a lot from parents is that, we feel so overwhelmed with it all. And if you look back over history, this is just one example of, more media, more videos, more shorts, more reels, more, really just screen time, the invent of these supercomputers in front of our, that everybody has one in their hand it's another challenge with this screen time of what it all means. But, one thing that hasn't changed in my time and in your time, and I don't think is going to change, and that is the challenges are going to be a little bit different, I believe. And maybe they seem so much more intense now than they were. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But one thing that doesn't change, and that is that you and I and everyone watching or listening, we have the same core emotional needs. And we have the same, the human experience is kind of similar in that one thing that's going to be a constant, according to me and a lot of people that I follow, is that the beliefs that we hold to be true about ourselves are going to have the biggest impact on our results in our lifetime. And so as we hopefully become aware of how to manage the noise, the chatter, all these, there's many estimates, but one estimate is that we have 60,000 thoughts per day, going through our mind. Well, so what's a thought? A thought defined as a sentence or a phrase that goes through our mind, that's in our mind at a given time. 60,000 per day? Talk about busy. That's a lot of stuff going on. And so, obviously 60,000 is probably way too much to manage. I'm lucky to get a few intentional things done per day. But being a young person today is certainly challenging. It's certainly challenging. But I think that if we focus on the core things, that they're going to stay the same.
And so when we talk about, if the children can focus on those core things, what would be those core things that if they focus on them, regardless of the noise, regardless of technology, regardless of the media, regardless of what's happening in the world, they're going to stay on track to, be focused on their goals and to focus on being deliberate in the thoughts that are going through their mind and not just the random 60,000?
Yeah, it's a super great question. Like, where am I going to focus? Where do you even begin? There's so much. I've kind of narrowed it down to just a couple, but I believe that the primary one, at the very core inside of all of us, at the very root, if you will, is our beliefs that we hold to be true about ourselves. Now, let's just say that I haven't sat down and decided what those beliefs are, and I'm not actively working on developing beliefs of my choosing. Let's just say that you're like, what the hell are you talking about, Shane? If that's what you're thinking right now, that what happens is that subconsciously, as we go throughout life, this supercomputer, and what I'm pointing to, if you're listening, is the one between our ears, the one behind our eyes, your own individual, amazing, unique supercomputer is calculating and giving you thoughts that are changing over time the things that you believe to be true about yourself. And so a lot of times we can go through our lifetime with this amazing tool that, in my opinion, puts any device that has been created, any real, what we call a computer today, that our brains are so much more sophisticated that I don't think that AI or anything will ever create something more magnificent and more powerful and more than our, and you have your own unique one, which is kind of an interesting concept. I mean, even identical twins have, slightly different, their own brain, slightly different DNA. And then we all have our own individual experience. So everything that's been input into our supercomputer, our own personal one, is slightly different. And so I believe that really the focus can be that, as we go throughout our life, all this input, it kind of goes like this. We're going along, and Michael said something to me, and I'm like, ouch, that kind of hurt. I mean, man, I can't believe you'd say that. Somebody said that you said that about me. Oh, man. And so now I don't feel so good. And if I can either make meaning intentional, or if not, my brain's going to go, hey, you're kind of that way, Shane. I mean, because that's usually the way it goes. And then somebody else can come by and say, hey, I heard you on that podcast, and it was amazing. I heard you in coaching in session. You did a great job. And here goes my thought process goes back up here. I'm like, oh, I'm a pretty good I'm a great speaker. That's who I am. And so this is an example of like day to day and minute by minute of our brains and what's kind of going on in there. And so if we can begin to understand this process, and then to become intentional about, a lot of people don't even know that we can really choose or change thoughts that we have about things and where the responsibility lies. And so I believe that the primary focus should be on what we want to believe about ourselves. And I'll tell you why. The reason is, first of all, it's where our results are going to come from, right? We're going to have a better life. And as importantly, or more importantly, the things inside us that we believe about ourselves is coming out in ways and feelings and thoughts and actions to all the people that we deeply love. And it's how we make our contribution to the world. So to me, it's absolutely primary to focus on how we feel about ourselves. And what I mean by the beliefs, I'll just wrap it all up into one thing, and I'll call it what we believe about ourselves. And what I mean by that is all these concepts: self-esteem, self-confidence, self-image, your relationship with yourself. All of these things I'm saying are things that you believe to be true about yourself. And those things influence everything in your world. According to me, the most important influence and the most important factor in the results that we're going to get in our lifetime. And so my mission is to help people who are willing and have the desire to develop beliefs about themselves so that they come to believe that they are 100%, that they are 100% valuable, 100% worthy, and that they can do things that are not good, yet alone that doesn't affect their value and their worth as a person, as a human being.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I love the idea of willingness as the factor there, because 100% agree, right? Some people are not going to be willing to break the cycle. Some people are going to allow negative thoughts to kind of run rampant and to be that song on repeat that goes on their own whole entire life. And I find it bewildering at some points of where, like there's a saying, right? You don't hear bees arguing to flies, or like why they're on top of poop or something like that, right? Bees will eat the honey and they're on top of the honey, and the flies are on top of the poop, right? So there's an argument there where you can focus on the negative things, and you might say, well, is what I got, right? The circumstances of life. Or you can say, you know what, there's something sweeter out there for me, right? I might have to do the work, right? I might have to go get the pollen. I might have to, process it into the honey, and then the end result is, something good, right? Like honey is a resource. I know I'm using bees as the example, but honey is a resource that it doesn't really spoil, right? It could be used as an antibiotic, right? It could be used on burns, right? There's so many beneficial things there versus what, the crap is, you just throw it away, right? It's useless, it's pointless. And you have to ask yourself, how much crap are you putting in your mind every single day, right? Too much probably to even fathom, right? And this is not the good crap, right? This is not the manure that you would put on your crops and start growing the farm, right? This is the bad stuff, the toxic stuff. And, when we are looking at that cycle now, right? And it's on repeat, that song is on repeat, and it's just a song you hate, so think of a song you hate and you're just like, it's every day. So most people, when it comes to their life, they're just not joyous into being deliberate in their day. They wake up, they hit the snooze button, they wake up and they're sluggish to get up and go to the bathroom and brush your teeth and get dressed and go to work. Are you making a difference? And you said that you were able to break the cycle, right? Because you said when you were 16, you found alcohol. You found what was going to kind of numb the noise, or to make that noise not as prevalent in your life anymore. So you are a person who knows the struggles, but then you also know that you can get out of it. You can get through it. And I think that's so important to instill into others, that no matter where you are right now, because you might be that fly on top of that crap, but it doesn't mean you have to stay there. And so what was the epiphany for you to kind of wake you up to say, you know what, this cycle is not something I want. I'm going to be more willing in my days so I can go after what I know I can attain.
Yeah, that's a great story. I appreciate that, and a good question. Like your really like your comments, and I agree. Sometimes I look at people and I'm like, hey, I want you to do what I want you to do. Your life could be so much better, and it's just disheartening sometimes to see. And then I think back and say, I wonder what people were thinking when they saw me for 20 years. In some respects, just kind of wasting my life away. And so, nothing's going to change until we choose it's going to change. That's for sure. Nobody else is going to be the one that's going to do it. But the question is what creates the desire, and what's stopping the desire from being there? And a lot of times, and this is going to come right back to what I said, it's going to be what we believe to be true about ourselves. Because in my case, I didn't know if I could quit. And if I did, I didn't know what it'd be like to fail, and I didn't want to fail. And I just didn't think I could do it. I didn't have the belief in myself. Okay. First of all, I didn't have to know. This is really important. I'd like to kind of go through that cycle. Okay. Because here's what happened to me. I thought about, so let me just give a little bit of context. When I say that I was drinking alcoholically, I'm not talking about, I had a couple of extra beers here and there. What I'm talking about is somebody who's slurring their words, practically falling down, drinking, in excess of 20 beers on a daily basis for a couple of decades, okay, without fail, not like on the weekends or this day and that day, every day, okay. And so I thought about the change for a long time. When I mean a long time, I thought about this for months, almost 8+ months, okay. And I thought what my life would be different. And I didn't know if I could do it. I did not know if I could break out of this cycle. I would wake up in the morning and my hands would be shaking and my mind would be going, where's a drink? And I didn't know. I was mentally and physically addicted to a substance. This cycle that I described a while back is in part and mainly what got me there. This mental cycle. But that's where I was. And I didn't know. really thought that there's a very high percentage that I'm going to die at a reasonably, what I consider to be a young age, drunk somewhere, and nobody's even going to care. Not many people. And so, first of all, I put a lot of thought into the process, and I say that just because I think it's important to think about what it could look like in the other side. Even if you don't know if you can make it, begin to see if your mind can picture something on the other side. So if you want anything to change in your life, there's two creations. The first one's inside of your mind. So this first thing is just to think that way. Second of all, like I've said a couple of times now, I didn't know if I could do it. You don't have to know that you can get it done. The only thing that we need to accept, and this comes about what I believe about myself, okay? And this is something that I work on every day. It's not something that you get done and check off the list. This is an ongoing pursuit throughout your lifetime if you want it to be that way. And it's what I do, and it's what I encourage people to do because of the results. So what I mean by that is I want to more and more believe that if I fail, it's okay. I want to believe that if I choose to go for it, I'm going to give it all I've got. And if I don't make it, so be it. The feeling that I get from failing I'm going to be okay with that. You know, a lot of times we don't want to see ourselves fail. We don't want other people to see ourselves fail. We don't know what it would look like. It's too scary to fail. It's so much easier to be here. But having the willingness to feel the emotion of failing and to be able to say, even if it feels uncomfortable, going for it. If I want to stand up in front of an audience and speak, and I stand up there and I can't even get my words out because I'm so nervous, okay? If that's what I want to do and I'm willing to go for it, and guess how that's going to feel? I'm going to be embarrassed. It's going to feel awful. You get up, what if I fall down on the stage and my hat falls off and I just look like a total klutz and I can't speak? How's that all going to go down? I'm just staying home. That's hard. But if I say to myself, if I can believe in myself, hey, Shane, whatever happens out there, you can handle feeling that negative emotion, that discomfort, okay? You can handle that discomfort because what it takes is courage, and courage sounds so amazing, you know. We all want to be courageous. It just like so many examples of courage, and it has this positive meaning to most of us behind it. Yet exercising courage is not so easy. It does not feel good, right? What feels good is when you get it done, when you've acted with courage. And so if I believe that about me, and the only thing that I knew is that I was going to give it a shot the best I could that day, okay? So I got in my old truck and I drove down to a detox one Sunday morning at 11 o'clock when I finally crawled out of my drunken stupor and woke up and went down there. And I went to a detox because I was worried about the withdrawal of alcohol, that I could have a seizure and I didn't want to die. So I went to this detox place and I checked myself in, and that didn't feel good. That was a humbling experience. And I stayed there and I did everything that they said, and they medically watched me, and I physically stopped alcohol for 3 days. Okay, and I hadn't done that, by the way, in 20 plus years. And I drove out of there on the third day. And the only thing that I knew that third day was I was going to just give it the best I could when I was faced with a decision. And so I did. I gave it the best I could, and I went to sleep that night and I didn't drink. And then the next day I did the same thing. And then that was a hell of a long time ago now. And every day I've done that. And then it's changed, right? We think it's going to be a lot of times we can't see the long term is going to get better because we're so in the midst of the way it feels right now. But over time, it's definitely changed and got better. And that's the thing to know. So back to your point, because I'm with you 100%. The desire, where's the lack of desire coming from? It's coming from the only thing that you can ask of yourself, and I hope that you do, is that if you seek and you want something, to go for it while you're breathing, because you can handle what it feels like even if you don't make it.
Thank you for sharing that story. It brought up a scenario in my mind, because I know there's some people who would go on the path of recovery or detox or whatever the term, right? Like everyone has their favorite terms in trying to become a better person or fix themselves. Again, the terms are, there's so many synonyms. And I think of a person who might have went 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, but then they had a relapse. I know it wasn't you, but if the person did have a relapse, or if someone did have a relapse and they fell back into it for a period of time, what would be something you would say to that individual to kind of get them, to experience the days after the detox again? So it was day one again for them, instead of going 20 more years of the same routine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a super good question. There's a lot into that because, it's a huge question. I think the bottom line is really a couple of things. And that is first of all, that I want to more and more embrace negative emotion and to accept failure as part of the process, part of the process. Just because I didn't relapse, okay, doesn't mean that I didn't have a hell of a time making this happen. It was not a simple transformation, and it was a transformation, okay, because everything I had, it was part of my being, all of my friends, where I spent my time, the way my thought processes, my patterns, my routines, my life had to make a total switch. And we do that all the time. We see it with weight loss. We do it with all kinds of different substances. We do it with fitness. We do it with our own personal schedules and the commitments that we decide to keep to ourselves. Well, I'm going to start waking up at X time, or I'm going to go to the gym. I'm sure you see this a lot, right? Here's my thing and I'm on it and I'm going to go for it. Well, I think we just need to embrace failure. That's part one, is just say, hey man, I'm setting myself up to fail and I'm going to go for it. That doesn't mean I'm going to fail on purpose, but if it comes, I'm going to welcome it as a piece of the stepping stone to get where I want to go. Then the second is, it comes back to what I believe about myself. How can I, and by the way, there are in stable living coaching, and some of these too, and we all know some of them, but we really focus on 7 habits to develop beliefs about ourselves. Because here's what's going to happen. When I fail, if I quit and just say, man, I tried it and it didn't work, and that's just going to be the way I am, and that's the way it is, okay? I tried that gym thing. It hurt. I was sore the next day, and I'm done with this, And so it was easier to go the other way. And so I think that we just need to believe in ourselves, that if we can, to embrace discomfort. One thing that we do in our life, this is something I've really just been focusing on just recently, just the last few days or the last week. And that is that it's just the idea that, naturally, it's not that we're defective, but we all are seeking pleasure. Our brain is driving us to seek pleasure. We want to feel good. We want to be happy. We want success. We want everything to be good all the time. And that's not the way it is. I don't even believe that happiness should be the goal of the way that we want to feel all the time. And I'll tell you why. Okay, I'll even take it a step further, because I believe that the feeling of joy, the way that I define it, it's like a up level. It's a step up from happiness. Okay, so I'll say, if joy is kind of one of the ultimate ways that I would like to feel, or you would like to feel, if we want to seek to have joy in our lives, it's a total paradox, because the way that you get it is, you don't get it by drinking alcohol. You don't get it by burying yourself in busy work or in media. You don't get it by eating. You don't get it by drugs. You don't get it by all the things that we do to try to soothe ourselves to feel better when we don't feel better. The way that you get joy is by being willing to go through the discomfort of the things that our thinking brain, our stepped up prefrontal cortex, on purpose reasoning, I'm going to live the way I want to on purpose brain, chooses for us to be. So for example, if I did say, hey, I'm going to the gym and I'm going to do XYZ at the gym. Okay. Well, the discomfort, that's where I'm going to get the joy. That's where I'm going to get the reward, the meaningful, and all that. And so I really think that I would ask people who can hear me, to consider the idea of embracing discomfort. Because if you want to have happiness and joy. That's the path. It's not a direct path to happiness.
Mhm. Yeah, I think of like the whole idea of there's so many failures that can happen in your life. It's not just I relapse on drinking, right? It could be I relapse on my New Year's resolutions of gym or being there for my family or whatever it be, right? There could be so many things. In all of this is just a concept of we have a choice to make. I think of when you're on the treadmill or something and you're running, your brain is telling you to stop. It's telling you to press, slow down or something. It's telling you everything but to keep on going. You have to be purposeful in that mindset of I'm going to keep on going because all your warning signs, all the bells and the whistles are going off, fire alarms going off, and it's saying stop, right? Because it doesn't know, right? The brain doesn't know if you're in danger, right? Like it doesn't know if something is going on. Physically, we know what we're doing, maybe even, consciously we might know to a degree, right? We know we're trying to get in shape, right? What does that mean, right? Maybe getting in shape for you means you want to be able to live a long life. You want to be able to run around with your kids. You want to be able to run from a lion if it starts chasing after you. And that fear of a lion is the same as going on stage for public speaking, right? The brain is structured in a way that is not beneficial to us sometimes, but yet it could be our greatest asset. So when we're looking at, our mind, personal development is one of those things, or just coaching in general is one of those things that we have to be deliberate in, right? Because when you're investing in yourself, it's easy to invest in the idea of a dream, right? The American dream, right? To go to school, and I'm talking about all the way to college, get a job, buy a house, get a mortgage, 30-year fix, whatever it is, have a couple kids, right? And then that's supposed to be happiness, right? Right. Or joy. And then, people, they get to that point and they're like, this is not what I thought it would be. And I can't imagine how many people get to places in life where they thought the view would be so amazing, or, like everything would be grandiose, and they realize that it's not exactly, what they were hoping for. And when we look at, personal development, or we look at coaching from a standpoint of, taking someone from where they are to where they want to be, it is a journey, to say the least. But it is something that many people, they shy away from because of cost, maybe, or because they believe they can do it themselves. Right. Because I'm sure someone says, might have been in a similar situation and says, yeah, I went cold turkey on cigarettes. I went cold turkey on alcohol. But then there's some people said how to go to AA, how to go to a detox center. So there's different people, there's, different walks of life for different people. But when it comes to, someone, stepping into, this realm of, trying to change themselves and to get a guide, to get a mentor, to get a coach, what is that inception for that person looking like? Like, how would that person know that they're ready for change and that they're going to be willing to take deliberate action to, be willing and to fulfill their desire for that change, rather than to say, what would be nice? Some change, but they don't take action in it.
Yeah, it's a good question. You started off with some things about discipline. That was one of the habits we teach, which is make a promise, keep it. But I'll come back to the most recent part of your comments there, and your question is that talk a little bit about coaching, and I'll comment on that. And that is that, when I first heard the term, I'm life coach in I didn't hear the term until 2015. And I thought, pretty interesting thing. Seems like I might want to have one of those, because I look back on my life, and I mean, if you look at it, the significant things that we did, I ran a half marathon year before last, and I look back in my sports activities that I've done, what I've thought that I've done well in. And I look back in the skills that I've learned in my career and my profession. I look back at all of those things, and guess what I had in all of them? I had a coach, I had a teacher, I had a mentor, I had somebody take me and help me get where I wanted to go. Now, a lot of us, we have this idea that, if I asked 100 people if you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset, probably about 95 people would say that they had, or more would say that they had, this totally open mind and ready to go. But yet a lot of times we really don't. I mean, we want to say that, but we're not really open to learning. And you know what? One of the reasons we're open to learning is because we want to present that we already have it all covered because of how we feel about ourselves. So the better that we feel about ourselves, the more open, the more teachable, the more, hey, it's okay for you, Michael, to know where I'm at in my station in life, which opens the door for me to say, hey, here I am, and I can fully accept where I'm at. The things that I don't have, the things that my faults, my mistakes, and hey, I'm a human being. That's where I am. I love it, and I'm ready to change and move forward. When I feel not so good about myself, hey, we're not talking about it. I got this covered. That's one of the real reasons. In my mind, I think every human being should have a life coach. I practice it, and I'm also a coach for parents and teens, but my wife and I both meet with a coach. I have business coaches. I mean, I believe that it's how we get to, like I said, if you will find the same to be true. If you look back at the significant accomplishments in your life, chances are they weren't single-handedly you, right? You had to get the information or some help or somewhere to go. And when we talk about mental health, a lot of times, we like to think, like, do I have a fixed mindset, or do you have a lot of confidence? We like to think that we're pretty confident and we're pretty this and we're pretty that. But a lot of these things aren't something that you just check off your life's list and move on to the next thing. Either we don't understand it. There's so much available in this world. And really, I think where it begins is how we feel about ourselves, because I think that the more that we accept ourselves, which, by the way, is a hard concept to get. For me, let me just say for me, okay? For me, this idea of self-acceptance, I'm like, okay, I don't like my results. I'm not happy with where I'm at. And you're telling me that the solution is to accept all of that. I just couldn't make it make sense in my mind. It's like personal improvement, yet I'm supposed to be happy over here. I reject where I'm at, you know? But the truth of the matter is that's another thing that I will call it a paradox, because the truth is the more fully that I accept me as I am, it opens this doorway and the pathway and lets the improvement flow. And the other way is I'm subconsciously blocking my progress. I never get as much or as fast or as I want, or the progress that I want when I'm doing this. So when I think it comes down to desire to have a coach or when am I ready, I think if it depends on what we really want to go for, and if we can see ourselves for what we are and what we are, and I hope that everyone will. I would encourage you to go with my thought on this. Just consider it, okay? Because what we all are 100% as you are. And I mean, regardless of what you've done that you're ashamed of, or you wish you wouldn't have, or you're embarrassed of, or whatever. And I mean, regardless of what you've done. Now, I've done some stuff we will not talk about here today. We all done a little something, okay? And regardless of what you haven't done, and regardless of what has been done to you, because sometimes human beings do things to each other that are not kind, to say the least. Regardless of any of that, I would ask you to consider the fact that you are 100% valuable regardless of that, and to do the best you can to learn to separate what you have done or what has been done from you with your value as a human soul. Because the more your invaluableness, your pricelessness, the more that you can really internalize that. And that's something it's a constant thing that I'm working on myself. I ask you to consider to do the same, because the more that you can come to believe and know that and have it be a solid core belief of yours, is the more that you can open up to be empowered and to have progress, and really to be able to have more capacity to give to the people that you love and to reach your potential in this short time on this earth that we have to breathe.
Beautifully said. I know the journey is not always perfect. Many people, they think of perfect life, but what is that, right? What is a good life? What is a successful life? And all of these things are questions, right? That you have to do the work and figure out what is for you, because my perfect life or my good life or my goals might not be what are yours, right? And when you work with a coach, I found that, they're not saying, like, this is what I think you should do. It's what do you want to do, right? And oftentimes we have a hard time figuring out what we want to do because have been told so long from everyone else in the world what we need to do. And so when you get a coach, I think one of the greatest benefits is you create room for more insight in who you want to be, right? That deliberateness there is the key to that locked door that you're looking at right now. Because anyone can say, I would love to change, right? But if you're not deliberate, right? Like if you have the key in your hand and you're not inserting it into the lock, that door is always going to stay locked. And I can't tell you to put the key in, right? Similar to how you can't, make a horse drink when you bring it to the pond, right? Like it is up to the horse to decide if it's going to drink, right? And, in life is very similar to that, where, there's going to be so many people on these podcasts is, a testament of all of the coaches and all the people that have come on that have come from all walks of life and all different mindsets. And some people, they might resonate with you, and some people, they might not resonate with you. And I say that because I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, because I'm more of a spicy side, right? I'm going to look at results. I'm going to look at being deliberate, right? But then there's certain people, I know there's some coaches that I have spoken with that are big on emotional intelligence and being caring on your journey and things like that. Hey, everyone has their flavor, right? When you go to the ice cream store or the parlor, you have your favorite go-to, right? My wife's is butter pecan, right? I don't like it, but I'm not going to say, why are you always getting butter pecan? That stuff is nasty, right? It's not my place to determine her likes. And so you have to figure out what you like in life and what you want to go for. That's why there's so many professions. So, that's why there's so many opportunities, and the world is going to continue to expand. I can't think of, like a time when there was a horse and a buggy and everyone said, oh yeah, this is going to be the means for travel forever. And then when Henry Ford came out with the automobile, I'm sure people who had the horse and buggies were saying, like let me start to look at that too, right? Times are always going to be changing and mindsets are always going to be shifting. And so we do have to look at from past experiences, wisdom, and then we do have to look at what's happening before us. And I know one of the skills that many coaches have is not only the skill of experience, but the ability to look at what is possible next, right? We know that if we take a match and we put it to a piece of paper, it's going to light on fire. And that paper can, create a forest fire or something like that. And the same thing can be true in your life, where if you do something that sparks something, it could be disastrous like a wildfire, or it could be, being deliberate, like you're taking that match or that piece of paper and you're putting it on the wick of a candle. And now you're lighting your way in life. So there's just so many opportunities for someone to look at what coaching can bring. And I believe it's more of the light than the wildfire. So, as we, begin to wrap up, Shane, like I know, like we're having a really good conversation, but one of the things I love for, when we're getting toward the end of the show is for you to instill some final words into the audience members so they can be deliberate in taking action, like the next steps, whether it be reaching out to you, working with you, and then, helping people figure out where's the best place to find you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate your words right there. Just for the record, I kind of go for cookies and cream or Oreo when it comes to ice cream. But anyway, there's a lot of variety in coaches, and it's really important to find someone. I've had coaches that didn't click with me, and I needed to find somebody. The purpose, when I look at coaching, I look at my own experience of what I've gained, and a lot of times what I've gained is not somebody to tell me how to live my life. What I've gained is somebody to help me understand me and the things that are inside of me, how my thoughts, how my mind, how to manage all the business in between my ears, and to really to guide me to understanding and awareness. And then I get to make decisions. And then that awareness has really been like a game changer because people, we're not necessarily broken. You need to have somebody who understands these things, but it's not somebody that, like you said, to tell you how to live your own life. I coach a lot of different people, right? I specialize in most of my clients are parents and teens or parents of teens, but I also have individuals that are not parents or any of that, but primarily it's parents and teens. And so we have quite a bit of information there. I have a couple of free resources at my website. You're welcome to go there and check it out. I do a weekly free video, just like a 3-minute video once a week. I also have the country code for stable parenting, which is a free kind of country code for parents. And that is at stablelivingcoaching.com. Wherever it is, if you feel like, if you can see inside of yourself, that there might be something more, maybe. And if you're willing to give it a shot, there's lots of coaches out there in this world. I believe that it's so time and money well spent, because I don't think that, in my opinion, there's not much other that's going to, when you find somebody that clicks with you, and it doesn't take very long, and your life starts to go in the direction that you want it to, and you start to feel about yourself in ways that you haven't felt as good as long. And when I'm talking about, the joy starts to come when you have the willingness to go through that discomfort. That's kind of what I'm talking about. And it's empowering. It's very empowering to get moving in the direction that you want to. So I highly recommend coaching somewhere.
And I will make it easy for everyone. The link is going to be right down below for your website. And then, of course, I'll add your socials also, because people love that. And I'm definitely going to be looking at the country code, right? Like you mentioned, so I'm going to be perusing your website in just a few moments to look at that, because I'm a parent myself. And, one of the things I know as a parent is that I do not know everything, right? My kids are still young, right? 3 and 4 months. So I'm still new to the mix, even though I have been working with children for 17 years or something along those lines, nearly 2 decades. And I mean, there's still so much to learn. And, like when we have crossroads in our life, right? From when we transition to one thing to the next, maybe we're teens going into young adults, or we are, college students going into our careers for the first time, or being playboys to now being parents, or whatever it be, right? We can go into so many transitions. I believe transitions are so much smoother when you have someone there next to you, right? Someone sitting with you. And this is to say, for anything in your life, any troubles you have financial problems, you get a financial advisor, right? You get someone who's going to be there with you, who sits on the same side of the table and is going to help you with your goals. And that's the most important thing, right? We all have goals. We all have ideas for what we will like in life. And some people, they will love more than hope to kind of take the wheel, and for luck to kind of carry them the way, past the finish line of life. But we have to be deliberate, as we were saying, right? We just can't be bench warmers. We just can't sit by the waysides of life. We just can't, gallop and hope we get to a destination that we would, enjoy, right? We have to say, okay, this is where I would like to be. And maybe you tried and maybe you don't like it, but guess what? That's the beauty of life. You don't have to stay there. I used to say that, like if you don't like someplace, leave, move, right? You're not a tree. And so we have the ability to move. We have the ability to act. And today is the day for you to take action. So if you are ready and you're willing to be deliberate in your days and your goals and your endeavors in life, again, the links are down below. Reach out to Shane. And of course, begin that process. No one said life is going to be easy, but life can be meaningful if you put the right effort in. So I do want to thank you, Shane, for coming on, spending some time, and of course, talking about your work and your journey today.